Well, hello. I'm here with Doug to talk about landfills. It's Friday, March 29, 2024. And but before landfills, there's an article which I should have seen coming. So if you're a coder, I've been writing code lately, prepare for my secure coding class. If you very often you need a library of some kind, and you try like on Linux, you try apt-get the name of the library, and it's not there, and the name is something stupid. Like I know Docker is Docker-CE, and how are you supposed to know that? So if you ask AI will just tell you what looks like the right name, but it's not the right name. And now scammers are putting up fake libraries with the expected name. So you'll do the obvious thing that AI tells you to do, install what looks like the right, like if you want to if you get a Linux distribution without like ifconfig and you want it, it's not apt-get install ifconfig. It's some other weird thing like net-tools or something.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
AI will tell you, oh, just use ifconfig. And so somebody will put up a fake ifconfig. It's pretty brilliant, actually. You don't even have to write like a scam email with a fake link in it. AI will provide the fake link.
Well, Sam, that's been going on for a while if we talk about phone numbers. So you'll get an 800 number to say a government agency, and they'll buy all the numbers that are slight permutations, or
Yeah,
if
it's
you're
typo squatting.
dyslexic, yeah, number reversal. Would you
Yeah,
call it?
yeah. Typo squatting is what I've heard that one
Yeah,
called.
typo
But this
squatting.
one
Yeah,
here
yeah.
is a more subtle form of typo where you type in what the command ought to be. Like I've noticed AI will do this. It will tell me, like, I remember I asked it how to do something in a browser, and it said, well, click on settings, go to this region and where I thought it would be, but it's not there. And I'm like, am I wrong? No, that's where it should be, obviously,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's
yeah,
not there. Like, Microsoft is the king of this. Every new version of Windows, they hide everything you need behind some new menu item, so you can't find it anymore.
yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
Exactly.
so I thought
Yeah.
that was a cute new scam. All right. And what have you got?
Well, so here's my first one. I got a chuckle on this one. So, feds, turns out, have been requesting data on everyone who watched a certain video last year. And in two court orders, federal government told Alphabet, Google, to turn over information on anyone, get that, anyone who viewed multiple YouTube videos and live streams. Now, what did the government request? You want to know, right? I'm sure you're dying to know. The data requested was the name, the address, the telephone number, user activity of the user accounts. In other words, what other videos did they watch? And IP addresses of the people that watched. Well, we don't know who watched it, but we know the IP address that a computer was connected to that YouTube video or live stream.
Do we know what these videos were about?
It doesn't say, other
That would
than
seem
the
like the most
feds.
important thing. I mean, if it was videos like how to kill your neighbor with poison, then maybe I'd understand this.
Maybe how to overthrow the British government by the use of force and violence. Oh, we did that already.
Uh,
Or
Yeah,
200 to over 200 years too late.
I mean, I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm more rebellious. If the video was something incredibly horrible, and then people were committing crimes like that, then maybe this would make sense.
Well, I mean, this is kind of interesting. So the feds claim that this was part of a larger criminal investigation. So that's a way of, we can't tell you exactly. Maybe this was, another Oklahoma bombing, World Trade Center type issue.
Well, that's what they'd like. They'd like to think it was terrorism to save the children or
Yeah.
something, but usually it's something less.
I would agree. So we don't know that. And this was uncovered by Forbes. So let me give you a little bit more information about this that makes it kind of interesting. So the videos were sent by undercover, let's see, police. Uh, Sorry, the videos were sent by undercover police to a suspected cryptocurrency launderer. In other words, to get it, in conversations with Bitcoin traders, investigators sent links to public YouTube tutorial on mapping via drones, augmented reality software tools, and those are all in
Oh,
the Forbes details.
so it was a sting operation. They sent a video just to attract the criminals they were
Yeah,
trying to get to.
yeah, Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, I
that
did not
again
make
makes
that
it, that
clear.
again makes it a lot more, less nefarious, you know?
Yeah, so the video is a little bit more from the story. Were watched over 30,000 times, right? Did I say? Yeah, 30,000 times by thousands of users, and it could be unrelated to the case. Of course, it could be YouTube had your autoplayer, the user had autoplay on, and it happened to get that video as well. So we have to assume that law enforcement is taking all that into effect or into account, but they don't always do that sometimes, as we know.
Well, this is, I think, the feds using a watering hole attack. I've heard about this, where
Yeah,
you put up a video to attract the people you want.
yeah. So Google was ordered by federal investigators to quietly, that's the key word there, hand over viewer data for the period of January 1st to 8th, 2023. So it's unknown, just to be clear, it's unknown if Alphabet Google complied, but it's known that feds told Alphabet Google to keep it confidential. And Google claims that they receive these requests from law enforcement regularly. And they don't always comply, but meaning sometimes maybe they do comply.
Well, my
So,
question is, did they have to get a search warrant first? That would be
no.
interesting to, well, that's an
So,
interesting question. I mean, it just seems like this is not public information, so it seems like they should need a search warrant or court order of some kind.
well, it was a request.
Well, yeah, they can make a request and Google can comply, but then the people who they ratted on could sue. And if
Well,
they didn't have like a court order or something, then it would really be Google's fault.
how did the people know that they were exposed?
That's the problem, yes. But of course, now, to be fair, I don't imagine Google is in any way legally obligated to tell you if they hand over your data to a third
No,
party.
no,
But
I would agree.
well, we were talking about this before for advertising. There's a somewhere in the terms of service that says we may share your data with business partners. Does that include police? We may share your data. I guess that's implied for everybody. So
Yeah,
it,
is law enforcement other parties?
yeah, well, this is why you have to have standing in court because these
Yeah.
issues in the vague generality, you don't know what it means. That's why you need a real case with a real person. You need to know exactly what they did, and then you can make a reasonable decision.
Yeah, and part of the details are not being shared. The police or law enforcement wanting information like this kept confidential makes sense
Yeah,
if
I'm
it's
not
an
sure.
ongoing investigation. Yeah, so
Yeah, I'm
you
not
kind of
sure
have,
either. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not sure
Go
any of this
ahead.
is so bad. Like they have stingrays. They'll park a truck in your neighborhood and intercept all the phone calls for a few blocks to get one guy. And that's kind
Yeah,
of the same thing.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I guess
But
I'm not too
but
upset about this for so far,
yeah,
but
yeah.
maybe I'm missing it.
Well, yeah, yeah. It goes both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's about like
Um,
law enforcement doing what it does. I mean, law enforcement would always like to spy on everything everywhere, and you hold them back to some extent. And it sounds
yeah,
like this was somewhat targeted.
yeah, yep. Again, we don't know all the details, and we probably never will. YouTube, Alphabet's not going to tell us, and for sure, law enforcement's not going to spill the beans or share it with us.
Well, all you need is a powerful investigative reporter. I wonder if somebody like Brian Krebs or Kashmir Hill would find a way to track down some of these people. That's what they do. And man,
Yeah,
really effective when they blow things open.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, interesting story.
Yeah,
Not sure that we'll get much more about it, but you
yeah,
know,
yeah. A good
think
thing to
about
know.
privacy.
Yeah, in case
I
anybody imagines that your YouTube viewing is private, it's not all that private.
Yeah, and Sam, just out of curiosity, do you recall the bombing that took place in Spain several years ago, probably 20 years ago now? There
Well, I
was a
think it happens
massive
all the
bombing.
time there. Yeah.
No, there was a very large bombing, I think 200 people, almost 200
Hmm.
in and they collected evidence and it happened to be a fingerprint. And fingerprints, this is kind of interesting. The whole question of forensic science has been brought into question several times, but fingerprinting has always been thought to be infallible. right? And the reality is nobody has ever tested it scientifically. And to be realistic about this, you'd have to get the fingerprints of everybody on Earth who's ever lived to know if there's ever been a duplicate.
Well, I object on a mathematical basis. If it was a 1% chance, you'd only need like a few hundred samples to catch it. You could take a sample of some number of fingerprints and see how many identical are, and then you could state how common it is that they're identical.
Yeah, well, so far, and when the FBI law enforcement testifies, I've forgotten the exact words that they've used, but they say that there is no other match. There is no one else on Earth, something along those lines. But
Yeah,
here's the thing with the subway bombing, the FBI was involved and they identified somebody in Washington State. I don't know if you've heard about this or recall this.
I think you
He
mentioned.
was okay. Oh, maybe I mentioned this before. He was arrested,
Yeah,
detained, and the meantime, Interpol started looking at fingerprint matches as well. And they matched up somebody else. The FBI was absolutely positive. They had 5 representatives, fingerprint experts in FBI, examined the fingerprint, and they said it was a match, no question about it, to this gentleman in Washington State. In the meantime, Interpol found somebody else. The situation, the metadata, if you will, kind of matched up. They were in Spain at the time. This guy in Washington State was not. So it kind of seems really weak evidence that the FBI had, but they were convinced. So it turns out that when they did their fingerprint analysis, there is no formula for it. It's a person's opinion.
yeah.
And now what's happened as a result of this is the FBI has now had to, and law enforcement has now changed their testimony in court to say something along the lines, we have never found 2 fingerprints that are identical, or something a little bit weaker that's not as strong, like this is the person. This could only be the person. So we're also seeing this in other types of investigation, like bullet, matching of the grooves on the bullets.
Yeah,
That's come into question. Hair analysis, bite marks,
right.
whole lot of other things in the science of law enforcement that have now kind of come under question and scrutiny.
Well, no one should
But
ever have trusted any of these things 100% anyway.
yeah, yeah, and none
Especially
of
since
them.
fingerprint analysis is not like comparing the entire fingerprint. It's like 5 points of similarity or something.
Well, it depends on the investigator.
Yeah,
So I happen to know a little bit about fingerprinting and in my schooling. And it turns out that this is kind of interesting. There are only 5 basic patterns that
right.
we all have,
Yeah,
and they're just variations of it. And then it comes down to the lines, the grooves, the splits. They call them islands, the little dots,
yeah,
and the shape of those, and somebody interpreting. And the number of matches or the unique points is up to the investigator.
yeah, yeah.
So it's not an exact science, I guess. There's more of an art to it.
Well, and of course, you don't get a perfect fingerprint like you might make with an ink pad. You get some smeared thing. So,
Right,
it's like facial recognition. Nobody should ever have thought it's 100% perfect.
right.
Yeah. And
Agreed.
that's
Yeah.
why this is why I like our jury system. You have an expert, they present their evidence, then the jury decides how much do we believe this stuff?
But
Because
then you can,
obviously, one thing is the guy could just be lying. So that's why no evidence is ever perfect. The guy
yeah,
could have just lied about the match. That happened all the time. So
yeah.
that's
All
the
right.
thing.
Well, let's move on to our
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
story.
Anyway,
What do
so
you have for us?
well, that's the one I thought was the biggest one. The number
Yeah.
3 source of methane emissions is landfills. More than half of landfills emit large amounts of methane, and they are now using aerial surveys to find them, and then they can apparently do something about it. Now, I'd assume that's from all the rotting banana peels and stuff in the dump, but apparently there's something they can do to fix it. I'm not quite sure what that would be. Put put a layer of concrete on top or something. I don't know. But anyway, this may be something actually useful to do about global warming, because most of the things I hear about how to fix global warming are sort of pipe dreams, like let's quit driving cars. I say, well, that doesn't appear to be happening. Let's quit fighting airplanes. Well, everybody can recycle their plastic. And well, we're doing that, but that has absolutely nothing to do with it. And
Yeah.
this is something you could actually fix. Like, who would care if they have to spray some kind of chemical in the dump? That would be all right.
Well, I know that there that in the Bay Area there are a couple of methane to electricity producers.
Oh, that's a thing. Collect it and burn and use it. That
Yep.
would be, yeah, that would be good.
Yep.
Anyway, I hope there is something reasonably cheap you can do to half the landfills to make them put out less methane, because methane is like 80% more effective than CO2. So this is an area where you could probably actually do some real good without a monstrous amount of expense.
Don't know, other than I know that they have these methane extractors,
Yeah,
burners, and what they do is they burn the methane
yeah,
and we generate electricity with it.
yeah. Even just burning it without generating anything would still get rid of it and make it a lot less greenhouse warming.
Yeah, but I need to think of the chemistry. Doesn't methane, when it's burned, produce CO2?
It does, but like I say, CO2 is much less harmful.
I think it's 1/10
Yep.
of methane,
I
something along those
something
facts.
like that. Yeah. So anyway, uh,
All right.
all right. And what have you got?
So here's one. This is from Marketplace.org or Marketplace Tech. Last week, Supreme Court heard arguments from two states alleging that Joe Biden allegedly or illegally coerced social media companies into blocking conservative content.
Right.
And
Heard
I'm
about
sure
this
you've been following this.
for years. Of course, they've been saying this. And it started, I think, with anti-vax stuff.
Yeah, well, it goes way back, but yeah, we could start with that, wherever point in history you want to take.
Yeah.
But there's a person, it's at North Carolina, Chapel Hill, who used to work at Facebook, who said that Facebook has a tool called custom audiences that can be used to target voters with specific messages. And in the past, I think this was 2, 3 years ago, there was a Nancy Pelosi deep fake video. Do you recall that, where she
Oh
appeared to
yeah.
be drunk? Yeah,
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 because it's easy to do. You just play a YouTube video at half speed and the people appear to be drunk.
yeah, yeah. And when Facebook was contacted about this, they refused to remove it.
Right.
And instead, I would argue they're cashing in on the clicks, because clicks equals dollars,
Well, of
right?
course,
Views, yeah.
taking down anything that people click on is something they don't want to do, obviously, unless there's a really good reason.
Yeah, as we call that, it's an unnatural act to take down something that's generating money.
Right. And
So,
they have an obligation to their shareholders. This is
ex
the corporate system.
exactly. So the question is, should they have taken it down? Is this freedom of speech? They are a private company,
Well, it's
but it
also
is,
defaming somebody. So
right?
she could sue and say this is defaming and harming me, and then I guess you argue in court.
And then, it could be argued that she's a public figure and they're making a joke or mockery out of her,
That's
which
right.
they are.
That's right. It could be seen as like satire exception. So
Yep.
yeah. But and the custom audiences thing, I think that's one of Facebook's prize products, right? We can target the 50 people on Earth that want to buy your thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we know that Facebook kind of got in trouble with this several years ago when there was let's see, what was it, mortgage company, and they were trying to target specific audience that inadvertently excluded people of color. And that wasn't the intent of Facebook. It wasn't the intent
Mhm.
of the advertiser, but in essence, that's what they wound up doing.
Yeah.
The filter wound up, whatever criteria they used, pretty much excluded everyone of color.
Yeah.
So,
Well, anyway, the thing I heard was that the ruling was expected to go against the people that want to stop the government from informing people when they're putting up like known Russian disinformation. And 2 weeks ago, the Biden administration has begun resuming telling social media companies when they're publishing bad things. They
Yeah.
stopped for about 6 months because of this case, because they said maybe it's illegal for us to tell people when we know that what they're publishing is bad. But now they've resumed telling them, which is an interesting case because do you want the government having a ministry of truth censoring the media? And they don't order them to take it down, but they do tell them we have reason to believe this shouldn't be up there. This is in fact malicious stuff.
Yeah. And then the question becomes, if they don't take it down, could someone like Nancy Pelosi come in, enact a law, or bring Facebook into congressional hearings? And are there other ways to influence their lack of action?
Well, I think there is. And in fact, I think if you went to court,
Yeah.
you could say, here's the official government statement telling you this is a bad thing and you should take it down. And that would probably strengthen your case. So I
Yeah.
think the conservatives are correct that we are sliding towards a government ministry of truth censoring the media. They're right. That's the direction this is going in.
So, but this is not, again, this is not new. This has happened in the newspaper industry. So, again, selling papers to get the
Well,
money.
yeah, but they
Yes.
get sued, but they also get pressured by the government. I remember George Bush's war on Iraq with the yellow cake uranium. This was a
Yeah.
case where they knew it was false, and the New York Times knew it was false, and they quietly said, "Don't tell anybody it's false. We need people to believe this." So they shut up about it for a year. That's happened a lot of times. So that's
Yeah.
government pressure is currently being used to control our media in a lot of cases, probably more than is obvious.
True. True.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
I
think there's
would
anything
agree.
legal about it. It's just
Yeah.
cooperation because they want to
Right.
cooperate with the government because otherwise they'll never get another interview with a president or something. So it's kind of indirect pressure.
Yeah. All right. Let's move
Yeah.
on. What do you got
Anyway.
for us next?
Well, so Sam Bankman-Fried got 25 years in prison for
Oh,
running
he was sentenced. That's
was
right.
sentenced. That's right. So it's FTX, which is just a random tech bros decide to pretend to run a bank. And I've worked in finance. In fact, I should mention, I was surprised. I shouldn't have been, but some of my students had not even looked at jobs in finance, thinking they must be boring. And I said, "That's right. I had the same opinion until I got a job at a financial company. It's very interesting, and I highly encourage my students to get jobs like that. Not overlook these opportunities. It's much more interesting than you think it is." It's not just counting beans.
Yeah.
Anyway, but there are a whole bunch of rules when you run a bank, and if you just get a couple of idiots that are stoned and make a fake bank, the sky will fall on you, and that's what happened to him, and deservedly so, because he was just totally stealing the money.
So Sam, how much? Well, I guess that's a little bit different if we compare with Elizabeth Holmes, who got about 9 years,
Right.
and Bankman-Fried got 25.
Yeah, hers is
Um,
an investment scam. She got people to invest in something that didn't work.
well, isn't what Bankman-Fried did the same thing, an investment scam?
Oh, investment, if you invest in something and it loses money, that's more expected. But if it's a bank, if you put your money in a bank account and then you go to get it, and they say, no, it's gone, that's a whole
Yeah.
different problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
He told them he was just holding their money and then he was just investing in risky stuff and losing it. That is pretty bad.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, it came out in court testimony that somebody'd say, "Hey, I'm buying a house. Can I get a loan?" And he'd say, "Sure, here's a check. Do
Yeah.
I need to sign a contract?" No, no, don't worry about it. I trust you.
Well, that actually happened at a company I worked at. The guy in charge just took the money and bought a house. And when the client complained, they said, "Where's the money?" He said, "Well, I kind of took the money," and they didn't put him in jail. They said, "Well, we'll give you some time to just quietly fill that money back in, and then
Yeah,
we won't press
yeah.
charges." But this is the sort of stuff you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
And I got another financial one that kind of goes with it. So
Okay.
Truth Social, Donald Trump is now rich again because of Truth Social. He has several $billion, but this is based on the fact that Truth Social just went public. Now, Truth Social is a complete joke. It's Mastodon. They just stole the code from Mastodon, put a little prettier face on it, and made a social network like Twitter, but nobody uses it. So the statistics have come out. It has 5 million monthly active users. And Pinterest, Twitter, and Meta have like 100 times more. And yet it's evaluated at $6 billion and Pinterest is $10 billion. So it is trading at like hundreds of times earnings. And by the way, it has no earnings at all. I think last year it earned like $3 million in advertising and spent $50 million in expenses. So it's ridiculous. It's not even 1% of the size of a major social networking platform. It makes no money at all. And yet when they released it, the stock rose and rose more from like $50 to $75. So now it's evaluated at $6 billion or more, which is complete fluff. It's just a meme stock. And this, however, this is the thing I'm trying to have a more open mind about this. In the modern world, like you say, 1/3 of teenagers, their goal is to be an influencer. Fame is a product. So
Yeah.
all it is Donald Trump is famous. So buying a stock with Donald Trump's name on it and its ticker is DJT is just like buying a Trump Bible or Trump sneakers or a Trump whiskey or commemorative coin. It's a souvenir of somebody famous, and therefore it might go up. I remember Donald Trump would sign autographs for people. He'd say, "This is going to be worth $10,000." And the thing is, he might be right. Somebody might pay for that. So it's not that the company is of any intrinsic value. It's just because he's famous, anything with his name on it goes up. That's why I'm sort of conflicted. At first I said, this is garbage, this is wrong, these people are all fools. But are they really? Is it any different than
Yeah.
buying like a ugly looking painting on the grounds that guy is famous, so this painting's worth will go up?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well,
certainly not based on the, yeah, go
the
ahead.
more signatures you sign,
Yeah.
the less valuable they become because they're more common.
See, that is, I'm afraid, not true.
No?
That's Austrian economics. I had the same feeling like when Obama said, there's been a financial crisis, so I'm just going to print trillions almost $1 trillion of money and just give it to people to steal, and that'll save the economy. And I said, that'll destroy the economy. That'll water down the dollar and make it worthless. And it turned out that was not true at all. He was right. This Keynesian economics says it's not like water, where if you have more water, it dilutes everything. It's just like happiness. If you make people happy, then the money is fine and the economy is fine, and the numbers don't really matter. That appears to be
Huh.
true. I mean, maybe
Huh.
in a way, maybe you sign more and they become even more valuable because more buzz goes around. Like another one is music piracy. When people download an illegal copy of a song, does that really cost the music industry anything? And all the evidence is no, it promotes the song and they sell more. So economics is not like physics, like,
Well, let me give you the flip side.
yeah,
Of the signers of the Constitution, which signature is worth the most money?
I've never heard of this. How could you sell them? I don't really
No,
understand.
not the Constitution, of selling of the Constitution, but of the signatures of the people who signed the Constitution. Is whose signature is worth the most money?
I can't understand under what circumstance you could sell it and evaluate it.
Well, in other words, if you received a Thomas Jefferson signature, on a check or a letter or something, it's worth some value, right? To
I,
somebody.
I don't know. I guess that's a souvenir. Okay. I would guess whoever's famous,
To
maybe.
a collector. Well, it turns out it's a guy by the name of Buttons, and I've forgotten his first name.
Hmm.
And he's one of the people who signed the Constitution. And his signature is so rare, it's only on maybe 10 documents. And I think some of them were IOUs because he wasn't very successful in business. And he effectively had what we would consider like bounced checks or bounced IOUs. And it's fairly rare.
So it's like a
So,
rare coin or a rare stamp or something.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
there's the other side of the coin, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, from a purely business point of view, from a
Yeah.
financial analysis, Truth Social has no right to trade the way it does. And for that matter, Tesla has no right to trade the way it was. In a logical world driven by profit and loss statements, both of them would fall like a stone. But the world is failing to be logical that way.
Yeah, but can't we add GameStop to that and several other
And
stocks?
it did fall. That's the point.
Yeah,
Meme stocks usually only float for a while and then they crash.
yeah.
And
Just like cryptocurrency, just like NFTs.
well, NFTs anyway, but not all
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies crash at all. They're back up again, Bitcoin and Ethereum. So this is a brave new world. I mean, you're bidding on something not based on the fundamental financials, but on something else. And I guess, to be fair, this is like what media celebrities do. They figure out, how do I stay popular? What movie should I be in? What song should I sing? How do I market myself? And you're like dancing on the clouds. You're held up by essentially nothing. But if you do it right, you do have a career and success.
Yeah, but if you do it wrong, right, you can fail. You can go from,
There's nothing
yeah,
holding you up. That's why, if you actually
yeah,
like make Pepsi Cola and people are actually buying it and drinking it, then there's something holding you up. That's worth some value. And these guys are not really worth anything unless they can somehow keep the song and dance going long enough to stay
yeah.
popular. But that's basically what a political career is, like Trump. I mean, he's really got nothing to make people support him except keeping the song and dance going. And it's carried him pretty far.
Yep, it's gotten him this far. So,
Yeah,
and he has quite a following,
he does. Yeah.
devoted following.
Yeah, it's the entertainment industry. And to be fair, I've often said that teaching is basically a branch of stand-up comedy, kind of what we're in.
Yeah.
Anyway, anyway, let's go back to
All
you.
right, my turn. Oh, my turn. Okay, this is kind of interesting. The video game market, not that I follow it, and I'm assuming you don't either. You're not a gamer that much.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore either. I used to be somewhat. But it turns out that the video game market, there's a slump in the US and Europe, and
Oh,
that video game manufacturers are starting to lay people off in the US.
oh,
There's somewhat of a decline. Except, this is kind of interesting, in the developing world, meaning Africa, it's expected to hit the video game market $1 billion a year, which is mostly going to be in Nigeria and South Africa. And the problem that people have, or the game manufacturers have, is payment for subscription, because about 2-3% of the people in Africa have credit cards. So there's,
Dogecoin.
yeah,
Dogecoin is truly huge.
Dogecoin. So their companies, Dutch companies, South African companies are looking for new payment methods. And the one that they're using right now appears to be pay before using or pay before play, meaning you do a bank transfer and you bank a certain amount of credits, if you will, and then you use those, or you consume them, kind of like driving your car, right? You consume
Yeah,
the gasoline and then fill up again. So they use bank transfers to storage cards, or they use vouchers, pretty much like what we're doing in the US. When you go to the supermarket, Target, whatever, and you see the racks and racks of all the cards,
the gift cards. Yeah.
the gift cards. Yeah, yeah. And what's interesting is it prevents younger gamers from overextending or overbuying, if you will, and running up very large gaming bills, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Just like getting a parent's permission before you do in-game
Yeah.
purchases.
And we saw this with texting. If you remember, people, when texting came out and text messages were 10 cents, 20 cents, whatever they were, and kids were running up $50,000, $20,000 cell phone bills.
I didn't hear of that, but I have heard of people who had to cut like their wife off from making purchases in like the game where candy bars are falling from the sky, Crush Candy Crush,
Yeah.
like that, because people
So,
would make in-game purchases.
yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I guess the question, this is a societal question, but are we kind of over gaming right now? And we're looking for the next fad, so to speak?
Well, I was very charmed when I read that, 2000 years ago, Cicero in the Roman Senate said, the youth of today are off partying and getting drunk and neglecting their duties, and they have no diligence the way we did when I was a lad. So it's always been this way.
It's true. It is so true. I'm with you, Sam. All right, what else you got? So
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting what's going on in the gaming market. We'll see if it's going to recover
Yeah.
or continue to dive.
Well, I mean, I thought the gaming market was huge in America because and closely related to like the movie market. I mean, there's a lot of really good, beautiful games with fantastic graphics. And I thought, I think it's really big business.
Oh, it is. It's eclipsed the Hollywood, the movie business
Yeah,
years ago by, I think, tenfold. Something we're talking 10 billion versus $100 billion. Don't quote me on that.
yeah, yeah.
But it's surprising that how much larger the video game business is over Hollywood.
But one thing that I noticed is, as far as I know, none of my students have gotten jobs in the game industry. I mention it sometimes as this would be a perfectly fine job to get. I mean, it's a real business. They make real money,
Yeah.
but I don't think I have any students that have gone into the gaming industry. So that makes me wonder, maybe it's not growing.
Well, I know a few of my former students,
Yeah,
but a few isn't that many compared to the
yeah,
number of students
yeah,
we've taught over the years.
yeah.
So it is kind of interesting. And I wonder how arcades are doing, just out of curiosity.
I haven't seen an arcade in years. I think that's all happening at home now. And this is something I've heard Scott Galloway says, any kind of entertainment, if it happens on a big screen, don't invest in it. All the future is on the small screens. Everything's just going to be on your phone.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, yeah. And we tried to go with the Apple's goggles and Google's
And if
goggles
they
and
actually worked, that would be great if you're actually comfortable and looked good. And I think they aren't quite there yet, but they're probably right that one day a wearable will replace your phone. But they have to get a
yeah,
better wearable.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, what do you got for us, Sam?
Well, the last
What's
one that
new?
I thought was pretty interesting is that Apple users, there's a new attack on Apple users. They get hundreds of reset password pop-ups until hoping they'll eventually say yes. And they say if you actually say no to all of them, then they will call you on the phone and say, this is Apple tech support. You're supposed to click yes on one of them. And so this was a Krebs finding. So I don't know anybody this happened to, but it sounds like a new scam to be aware of.
Interesting. So you get a pop-up that says what, your Apple, iCloud,
Which you
or
do, right?
pass.
I used to get this all the time in earlier versions of iOS. Every time I would update, it would then pop up, your keychain is out of date. You need to log in again. And this would happen over and over again on real Macs for no good reason.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I guess it's like that, although I haven't seen it on iPhone in years. But anyway,
yeah,
um, I can believe this would fool some people.
yeah, yeah. I would too. I would agree with you.
There's a word for this too. This is a two-factor authentication technique too. You just keep trying to log in and they keep getting bombarded. Is this you? Is this you? Is this you? Hoping they will just click OK to make it go away,
Yeah, yeah,
which I imagine that works, maybe a couple percent of the time, which is probably enough to get in some accounts.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
Well, we'll see. They're getting, the graphics are getting better. The attacks are staying the same. Could we say that?
well, the criminals, I think they just recycle the same old scams over and
Yeah,
over. That's
yeah,
the way it's always been. And I think it's part of the ecosystem, right? I mean, the nature is full of thieves like squirrels and stuff. Just sneak in and steal things. It's part of the ecosystem. I like the I Ching. They say if you have vast wealth, you're going to attract thieves. And that I think is a good way to think about it. If you have something valuable, you better protect it because thieves are coming. And you can like pretend we ought to live in a moral world where that doesn't happen, but that's kind of stupid. It is just an opportunity and someone's going to exploit it.
right,
And then you
right.
got like I say, Truth Social. I'd like to say this guy is just a crook scamming people, but it's not that simple. You could say that. You could also say it's an investment opportunity, which smart people can exploit. Like I heard Brian Stelter talking about it, and he said, by the way, full disclosure, I bought some stock and it went up and I sold it. So I made $100. So while I'm condemning it, maybe, I can't condemn it too much. So you just
All
got to get
right.
out fast before it crashes. Anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
I think that's it for today.
That's it. Yeah, they'll have another one on Tuesday.
All right. We'll see you Tuesday, Sam.
Yeah.